When you talk about niche or speciality, I think what's really important is authenticity. For example, I always say that I did not leave the corporate world to join the creative field. When you talk about niche or speciality, I think what's really important is authenticity. For example, I always say that I did not leave the corporate world to join the creative field and be in a rat race in the creative field. I don't care what the other people are doing. I wish them much success. I believe there's room for everybody to grow and expand. So for example, you'll notice I'm currently not on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter. I'm only on LinkedIn. I'm very happy for the people who are getting 20 million views on their YouTube videos. That's not something I'm doing because I enjoy doing live stand-up. I enjoy engaging with live audiences. Now, of course, we're doing online shows. I don't want to spend my time shooting and editing and spending 10 hours in front of the computer doing that. Yeah, I like being able to see your face, to see that live reaction. So that's not something I have really focused on. I think what's really important is to be authentic. When you start off, you want the confidence that you can make everybody laugh. So you'll go for the easy joke. You'll try and cater to everybody. So the kind of joke I'll do is the Indians will understand this. As somebody who lives in Delhi, I don't understand the language they speak in Mumbai, for example. We call it bread, they call it pav. We call it pyaz, they call it kanda. We call it a servant quarter, they call it a 2 BHK. Right? Now, this is something that I know everyone is going to laugh at. Or we'll do observational comedy. So things like, I grew up in Calcutta, right? And I learned how to drive there. I remember taking driving lessons in London. And this instructor asked me, he says, "Oh, you Indians, why don't you drive in a straight line?" I said, "Listen, I'm from Calcutta. In England, you drive on the left of the road. In Calcutta, we drive on what is left of the road." Then what happens is, as comedians, we want to be seen as edgy, as cool. We'll do political stuff. We'll use bad language. We'll pick on positions of authority. We'll do the kind of jokes that make us feel intelligent, right? I'll give you an example. The kind of joke I've done is, so I went to America under the Trump administration. I had a beard when I went there. I get to immigration. The officer looks at my passport, looks at my beard. He says, "You know what, you Indians, you're a mistake. In fact, India is a mistake." I said, "Come on, officer, as an American, you should be grateful to us." He said, "Why?" I said, "Well, because when Christopher Columbus discovered America, he was looking for India. So to be perfectly honest, you are the bloody mistake." Yeah? So now that's the kind of joke that makes me look intelligent. There's a pause and then people get it. They're like, "Oh yeah, Christopher Columbus did discover America when he was looking for India." But I think eventually what happens is, because we operate in a profession that has no rules, no boundaries, no guidelines, no social norms, you're forced to look inwards. And, in comedy or in a lot of art forms, you call it finding your own voice. And then you talk about the things that you value, the things that matter to you, and what your sense of humor is. And eventually, your audience finds you. So a Jerry Seinfeld or a Chris Rock or a Russell Peters is not going to change what they say depending on who's in the room. So the people who like you will stay, and the people who don't like you will automatically weed themselves out. I think that authenticity is very important for a creator, because anybody who's been in a job interview will know this. If you're trying to bullshit the interviewer and tell them something that they want to hear, but you don't believe it, they're going to see through it. So I think as creators and coaches, it's not so about how have I been able to combine comedy and the corporate world, and it's about what is authentic to me. Both of these worlds are part of my existence. I enjoy business. I enjoy marketing, communication, comedy. And I've been able to find areas of overlap, which is what makes it interesting and unique to me. So I think that is a really important thing. Find out what is unique to you based on your interests and skill sets. And if you can blend more than one field of interest, that's where the magic is.
That is super awesome. Being authentic. Now, bringing the conversation back to connecting it with the corporates.
Yeah.
Now, you had spoken about something where where you look into what they need. How do you solve their problem? And this is how most of the content creators should work. So could you elaborate on that? Like how do you make sure that it's the right content?
You see, what happens is that I tend to operate in the low volume, high value space. Okay? Now, if you want to be in the high volume game, then you create this menu of offerings or a standard fit thing which applies to a lot of people. But what I do is, say if a client comes to me for corporate training, for coaching, they'll say, CJ, can you tell us what you can do for us? Now, of course, I have 15 or 20 different things that I can coach them on, but I will never give them an answer. What I'm going to tell them is, I'm going to say, why don't you tell me what's keeping you up at night? What is giving you sleepless nights? What are the problems you are currently facing? And then I will design a customized solution that addresses exactly those problems. It's the same thing when I do stand-up comedy, whether it's a private gig or a corporate gig. I mean, I did a show last week for an annual leadership summit of a large organization. We had people from 20 countries. I did 45 minutes of customized content around that leadership team and that organization and the issues they were facing. This is based on over 6 hours of conversations of talking to senior leaders and getting this information. Now, the value add, like being able to do that, is phenomenal. Firstly, it is unique to them. They will never see a show like that anywhere else. But I'm addressing their unique issues. And because I'm talking about challenges in a humorous way, it breaks down the ice and it allows them to have open conversations about those subjects as well. So I would say, today, for example, as a comedian with online shows, my competition is Netflix. Right? Today, why should somebody hire me for a show when they can turn on Netflix? And the answer to that is two things. One is interaction, which is what I do live. And the second is customization. So, yeah.
Amazing. I think what you just spoke about is also sort of a dipstick study, sometimes persona research. The time you spent with those guys that you just mentioned about, rarely people go to those lens. And that leads to people talking about you. Once you leave a session, they're sharing what you did, how many people enjoyed it, how much they learned. Do you do anything to make sure that happens beyond what you've already told us to drive the word of mouth publicity?
So here's the thing, right? The problem is because I started out 17 years ago. Even today, I don't have a management team. I have one manager who sits out of London, but he handles my international work. I'm the guy who writes the material. I'm the guy who performs it. I'm the guy who writes the invoice. I'm the guy who files the TDS, and I'm the guy who couriers it. So also the hustling has become sort of ingrained. So I ran this workshop for Google yesterday morning. It went superbly well. I've already asked 4 or 5 participants to write me LinkedIn recommendations. I've already taken a screenshot of one of them. I've already sent it out on a broadcast list on WhatsApp to 2,000 people. I've already got 5 inquiries to run exactly the same workshop. And today on my LinkedIn, I'm going to post some of the feedback that I received. So that's
achieve
kind of
distribution of what you did. And this is great because in the marketeer's jargon, this is called call to action, CTA. People to do something. This is amazing. I didn't know about this, that you're distributing your content like that. And then I think it echoes one of the sessions I had with our investor, Sanjay Mehta, who's kind of one of the most well-known angels in the country.
100x. They do wonderful work.
Yes, 100x.vc, Ninad and Sanjay. So he mentioned to me that doesn't matter how good the content is unless you achieve distribution. It's not going to be any good. And what you're doing is brilliant because you're achieving distribution for the word of mouth or the great work that you did.
I would also add to that distribution also needs to reach the right people. Right? Because you'll have people who will get 10 million views on a video on YouTube. Then they'll go to sell out a show at an auditorium and 4 people will show up. Because those 10 million people are happy to watch your free content, but they're not willing to pay 500 rupees to buy a ticket. So it's also ensuring that your content or your distribution reaches the audience you want it to reach.
Absolutely true. We have somebody coming in later in the day, Shrimantha. They did about 1 crore rupees in 90 days. They breached that number in just 90 days of launching their content online on Nourish, and only a 20,000
Oh,
people
well
community.
done. That is a very good plug. Well played. See, guys, that's how you do it. Subtle.
Yeah, I know. So Shirimantha, and this is true. Like Shirimantha has only 20,000 followers. I have people who have got 1 million plus followers, and they haven't been able to breach this.
Of course, this is about Shirimantha. It's not about Nourish at all. Keep
Yes,
going.
yes. Well, CJ, let's move on to the next question. How do you charge a premium for your products?
How do I
You
charge a premium for
mentioned
my
that.
products? By being as good as I possibly can and delivering value to my client.
And be vocal about it, right? I mean, like you said, you distribute
So
it and tell them.
I will often tell my clients this, that I will not negotiate on price, but I will give you an offer that no other artist will probably give you, which is that if you don't like what I do for you, you get 100% refund. That's the deal.
And
in fact,
have you had to pay 100% refund?
Never,
yet?
never. In fact, the client I negotiated with for this gig last week, she told me after the show, she said, had I known you were going to do what you did, I wouldn't have even bothered trying to negotiate with you. She said, I thought you were going to give us 5 minutes of customized content. I did not realize you would give us 45. So yeah, you always want to give them more than what they expect. That should always be your game. So the trick is to set the bar really low, set expectations really low.
Yeah.
And then
no, it's about going beyond what you promised. I mean, a lot of different successful leadership coaches call it by different names. Robin Sharma says, what does he say? He says exorbitant value. Yeah, like that's the word. And Napoleon Hill used to say going the extra mile, right? What people didn't expect out of you. So yeah, age old wisdom there. Guys, everybody watching this, you've got to underline, note this down. This is how you build programs. And a lot of people ask us in these sessions that we do, how do I charge? Like the normal rate for this content piece is, let's say, a course for a week to 2,500 rupees. And my value is 50,000. How do I charge that? So
I think the important part on that as well, Kinner, is to establish your personal brand. When you have a brand, that is what people pay for. And brand building is a catch-22. You can't really go and establish your personal brand. Your brand in many ways, well, you can. I mean, I shouldn't say you can't establish it, because I run courses on how to build a personal brand. But I think what's important is at some point, your work should speak for itself. The quality will establish a brand, but then that quality needs to be seen. I mean, today, if you're a consulting firm, you get client references. Right? So those references, if they come from people who others believe to be credible. So for example, the reference I got yesterday is from a guy who works for Google and has done an MBA from IIM Bangalore. So immediately you're like, oh, if this guy is saying it's good, it must be good. So I think that bit is important as well.
You ask for references actively. Do you have a form or something that you leave after the event is over, online or physically?
If I remember, I do, but I think it is important. And especially now that I'm no longer on social media, I'm only on LinkedIn. I try and get people to write a recommendation on LinkedIn,
Wow,
and I tell them, if you enjoyed it, or if you think it was value, then write one. And I think that's really good, because when you deliver value, people will actually go out of their way to try and help you and support you.